off of statements.
All right, so there's two ways to look at the loss on Sunday. And one is, just a disappointing defensive meltdown. Team didn't play great. Certain players obviously did. But you can also learn. Like, you're going to pop in the film, you're going to watch this game. There's a lot that can be learned by everyone, including a guy that points the finger at himself on a regular basis, and he did yesterday, and that is Kevin O'Connell, and here's the statement. Creative is fine, but cute isn't. I want to get more into the Dalvin Cook play, the jump pass, because Kevin O'Connell's done a lot of good. He certainly has some areas where we can critique him, but for a first-year coach, I think he's done a fantastic job. And for a long period of time, I thought his play calling in the deep red was absolutely ingenious, fantastic. He took the deep red and he owned it.
The deep red.
The deep red. He owned it. I mean, he was calling jet sweeps, orbit motions, confusing the defense.
Orbit motions.
He called some orbit motions. Came behind Cousins. He did a lot of things that I thought, okay, it now looks like 2022. But you have crossed the line when you have Dalvin Cook, for the first time in his career, try to throw a jump pass to Johnny Munt. That is a play that's all about you. That's not about the team. And Kevin O'Connell's thing was, well, it worked in practice and we had worked on this. Okay, dude, that's practice. That's not a game. And the second that you saw Dalvin Cook get that ball and sort of freeze up like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that's a problem. Because what you had to have told him is, if anything doesn't look right, hit the ground or just run, but don't throw. And I think that Cook's a veteran. So going back to what you talked about in PD, Phil, I do agree that there is blame to go around here. But I also think that the entire offense was put in a position to fail there. And it was O'Connell overreaching and getting cute. And I think he needs to learn that there is a difference between that is a really creative play and, okay, now you've gone a bit too far. And as Dex said, in the index of the Vikings win probability, that's a huge play. It's the end of the first half. You've got an opportunity to tie, could totally change the game flow. And instead you fumble and the Lions then matriculate downfield quickly, attempt a field goal. It missed. But the point is, creative is awesome. I love it. Cute. I don't need it.
What did you say, Dex? It was like a 25% swing in win probability of that play?
Yeah, it was basically when the Vikings were in the first and goal situation, I believe they were at a coin flip, 52% chance to win the game. And then when the Lions took over, and I believe the first play was Goff hitting a 25-yard strike, it swung to 70% Lions. So yeah, basically a 25% swing of events in two plays.
Man. And then I think the other thing that bothered me is the explanation of that play after the game. So Kevin O'Connell says, yes, that was supposed to be a jump pass. So he was... Because the reporters weren't 100% sure. It almost looked like he was instructed. Yeah. It was either a jump pass or he was instructed, we want to kill 40 seconds here. So just lay down. Or it was almost like an end game scenario.
It wasn't even until Jonathan Vilma was the one who pointed it out. And I'm sure actually it probably, from a press box and up view, you could probably see it was a pass. Because same thing, I just thought he was looking for a lane and just straight up fumbled. I think that was the first clue. And then once they did the replay and Vilma kind of point out, that was a designed pass. And it was like, oh my God, what are you doing?
And then KOC's explanation was, our biggest thing on that play is we can't have interior pressure, and we got interior pressure. To which I would say, okay, let me get this straight. So Ed Ingram has struggled this season. He's been a little better. He was the PFF grade just came out. I don't want to give too much away for when Judd has to guess them tomorrow, but it was not a great day for Ed Ingram. And I will even add, without spoiling too much, Austin Schlottman is a backup center. Yeah. So you're running a play that's predicated on, it's a trick play predicated on, we can't have interior pressure, guys.
Yes.
But we're going to run it with a backup center and a struggling rookie right guard. Dude, crumple that thing up and throw it away. Why are you running that play in that situation? And it's so easy to second guess. But I think if you would have asked any of us before that play, hey, what do you think about a jump pass here on 1st and goal? I think all of us would have said, what else you got?
Yeah. Let's see the rest of that playbook. Let's see the rest of the creative plays that you've got.
It's like when you go into a salesman and you're like, I have this for you. What else is on the menu? Yeah, here's a special for today.
Yeah, it's boiled
else?
liver and
Yeah.
raw onions.
You want to hear about the jump pass? We've got
Yeah,
the jump
what
pass
else?
available.
What else?
How about just some how about a grilled cheese?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I feel like we haven't ripped the defense enough on Mackey and Judd after filleting them on Purple Daily, so I'm going to give you this one. Here's my statement. The Vikings have two fossils trying to roam the middle of the field in Eric Kendricks and Jordan Hicks. So Kendricks has actually been, because he still understands what's happening more than almost anyone because he's played enough football, right? So he's pretty great against the run. According to, this is going into the game, by the way, according to Pro Football Focus, among 85 qualified linebackers in pass coverage, Eric Kendricks ranks 72nd out of 85. Jordan Hicks ranks 62nd out of 85. And I watch these games, and there's definitely cornerback issues. Cam Dantzler was largely terrible yesterday. You know, I think Shelley Island is closed for the holiday season, it appears.
The Duke
So
did play a lot.
Yeah, he was out there a couple times. But when you watch these games, it feels like the middle of the field is just wide open all the time. I wouldn't expect those linebackers to cover receivers in zone coming across, but like the running backs that get chunk yardage. DeAndre Swift gets a 15-yard classic, like there he goes streaking across the field, and Jordan Hicks is plotting like 6 yards behind him and trying to catch him. So those guys in coverage, it's just not workable anymore. I don't know that Brian Asamoah is going to just come in. He's faster, but he has not been great in coverage either. Jordan Hicks now has a bum foot. It came out after the game. He hurt his foot in that game.
It's not going to help matters at all.
It's like these guys, it's like you get to a certain point and you just can't move as fast covering these fast tight ends and receivers and running backs.
Yeah.
I almost feel like Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks are the last of the old guard of linebackers. You know, they're especially Hicks. He's just a big dude. Mm-hmm. I don't know that type of player exists in 5 or 10 years. I think they're all basically safeties. That's kind of what this is morphing into. So I guess my point is the middle of the field is wide open because they have two fossils at linebacker, in part.
Yeah, Hicks has to sit against the Colts Saturday, right? Like, there's no way.
You can't put that dude out there at like 70% or something. Like,
he can't run already.
No, it's bad. Okay.
Who's next?
Back to you, Jed. Go ahead.
No, I have not.
Declan?
given a
Okay.
statement
Oh, I'm
yet.
sorry. My bad.
No, that's okay. No, that's fine.
I waited.
Go.
You see, I hung out because I
I'm
thought
done.
it might be, but I'd forgotten to.
Sorry.
I'll say this. I'll stay on the defense. The Vikings missed Harrison Smith yesterday. He is up there in age, but still a pretty effective safety. 5 interceptions this season. I don't think the Jamison Williams play happens if Harrison Smith's on the field. I think he is over there to cover that and make sure that play does not result in a touchdown. He is still an effective player, and Harrison Smith probably definitely a Ring of Honor guy, maybe a borderline Hall of Fame player, to be honest. But his presence was missed on the Vikings defense yesterday, man. I mean, when you have all these plotting linebackers that we just described and cornerbacks who probably shouldn't be playing significant minutes, and Duke Shelley and whatnot, Cam Dantzler shaking off the rust after being on IR for the last month, you remove Harrison Smith and all of a sudden it becomes an issue. And it sounds like both Harrison's injury and even Bradbury's injury were more game time decisions. They're not going to be lingering long-term injuries. I would expect both of them to most likely be on the field when the Vikings host the Colts this weekend. But the Vikings defense missed Harrison Smith. He's a leader on that team. Yeah. He's opportunistic. He's a damn good player. His presence was missed yesterday for sure.
Yeah, it was. It's his physical presence, but it's also just like the times where he will tell a teammate what to do, right? A young corner or Cam Bynum, hey, I need you to be in this place. And Jonathan Vilma, sometimes it feels like he doesn't know anything about what's happening, but he did make a couple comments that were spot on. He said, this is the type of play here where Metellus might not know to hold his coverage for an extra 2 seconds to disguise it. Harrison Smith would know that. And I think it might have been on the Jamison Williams.
It was another
touchdown.
play. It was going the other direction, but it was a big play. Oh, it was the Dantzler touchdown. The one that Dantzler gave up in coverage.
Yeah, because one of the safeties, I think it was Metellus, didn't hold his coverage long enough.
I think also Vikings fans wouldn't feel as salty. And look, I agree. Jonathan Vilma, not like my ideal color commentator, but if he didn't play for the Saints, wasn't on that Bounding Gate team, I don't think there'd be as much strongish feelings towards his commentary on football games.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I thought the telecast was great. I love
Kenny Albert.
Kenny Albert. Yes.
Welcome in to another Vikings-Lions game. I've called 600 of them since 1999. Kenny Albert here.
Coming up next, it's Rangers Devils. Oh, check that Vikings Lions. I don't know where I'm at.
Off.
I love that Kenny Albert has become the soundtrack to Vikings-Lions games since I can remember. That dude's been doing this on Fox for like 25 years, right?
Long time,
I think
yeah.
late 90s.
Yeah, probably.
And he has done virtually every single Vikings-Lions game.
As I said to you on Ventline, it sure beats Chris Myers.
You're trying to bait me into ripping
I
Chris
am.
Myers.
I am, and you won't do it.
I'm not going to get into the mud.
So disappointing. Okay, now it's back to me, and my statement is going to be simple. So we've talked about the offense. We've talked about a defensive performance that was just absolutely awful, but we haven't made this statement yet, and that is this simple. There was nothing special about special teams. Special teams had, for the most part, I think it's been pretty good. Joseph's been hit and miss from the kicking game, and that's sort of a different subject. But I think overall, like the coverage, the return teams have been strong. But when you give up the punt return that the Vikings gave up, that I believe did set up a Lions touchdown, and then you also get beat on a fake punt, when you admitted after the game, you knew that the Lions might run a trick play. And the Duke of Shelley is like looking around. He like turns his back on the play. He's like, oh, this is a great stadium. I really like it. Hey, there's the popcorn guy. Hey, Duke of Shelley, they're running a fake. Oh, my God. This was about as unprepared as the special teams looked. And while they are certainly not responsible for the defeat, they didn't help you one bit. Special teams.
Yeah.
Taking it up, as Aaron Boone would say.
I got really frustrated with, like, there was a big kick return or punt return at one point. It's like
the punt return, was huge.
Yeah, but at least Greg Joseph was. If Greg Joseph can be
Nails.
Yeah, can be back to being Greg the Leg the last few weeks, then I will forgive a return here and there that doesn't result in a touchdown.
But
I would make that trade off.
I did not disagree with this decision, but we no question got the complete vote of no confidence in Greg. The 64-yard field goal attempt that they could have made as the last play of the first half, and they decided that they were going to have Cousins, I think, throw a Hail Mary. He got sacked on the play. But that's the thing about this, guys. Like a 55-yarder is standard operating procedure, and there are some coaches now that will attempt a 60-plus yard field goal. And I think our guy's now at a point where he's like, I don't really trust this. 50 yards, I don't trust. That goes back to what Dex, Phil, and I have been discussing for quite some time, which is I think 50 to 60 needs to be accepted as, oh yeah, we've got a great chance here. And right now, they're gun shy.
Yeah. All right, I tried to find an article that lays this out in simple form, and I don't know that I succeeded. But my statement is, going for two when the Vikings cut it from 2 touchdowns to 1 was the right call analytically. Now, I said that on Twitter, and I had a bunch of brosifs come back at me. You know, football games aren't won on a spreadsheet. You know, analytics are BS. It's like, okay, let's replace the word analytics with information or percentage chance to win the football game, right? Okay. And even then, like even with this, I'm not going to die on the hill. I'm just defending a smart guy in Kevin O'Connell and his logic and reasoning. So. And this especially applies when you have the worst extra point kicker in the league in Greg Joseph. Extra points are not automatic for the Minnesota Vikings. He's missed 5 of them on the season. So once every other game, that dude is missing an extra point. So I think it'd be even different if like, oh, you just have an automatic. It's a given that you're going to get the 1. It's not a given that you're going to get the 1, which is even more reason to go for 2. But when you're down by 2 touchdowns, you're down by 14, and you score a touchdown to cut it to, I guess, 8 before the extra point, especially on the road where it's harder to win on the road. Going for 2 to make it a 6-point game now means that a touchdown and an extra point wins you the game. And if you miss it, you at least know where you stand. Okay, now we've got, 15 minutes left and we're down 8, so at least we know where we stand going forward here. If you kick an extra point and then you score another touchdown, kick an extra point, you've tied the game up. But tying the game up isn't the goal. Winning the game is the goal. So what you're doing here is, and the math would side with this, you can win the game with 2 scores as opposed to 3. That's the logic. We only have to score 2 touchdowns if we get one of the extra points, as opposed to 2 touchdowns, tie the game, and then somehow stop them again and get a field goal. So that's the logic. Can we win the game with 2 scores instead of winning the game with 3 scores? Now, could you make the argument that maybe you should just wait till the very end to go for 2? Yeah, but if you do it first, at least if you whiff, you know where you stand the rest of the game. So I get why he did it. That's all I'm saying.
I struggle with this because I feel like as football fans that we mock coaches today for not being aggressive. But then when they are, we pick them apart. Like, how could you go for 2 there? Like, I'm a proponent. Go for 2. They made the point after attempt longer to incentivize teams to say, let's go for 2. Mm-hmm. I like it. So, you know, Kevin O'Connell should go for it more on 4th down. Okay, he does. They don't get it. What was Kevin O'Connell thinking? And I also think a bigger part of the discussion that's pretty important here is, what does it say? The 4th down call to me, and I thought that yesterday was the first time this year that I saw a few votes of no confidence in the defense. O'Connell, and I know if you don't make it on 4th down, it's a shorter field for Detroit. But I also would say he thought, I can make this and keep my offense on the field, which I like, and I don't have to have my defense playing. So I think that's a twofold thing. And Phil, to your point on Joseph, he's basically saying, yeah, it's not a chip shot now. I mean, this guy's missed 5 of them. Mm-hmm. And so I did think that one is, I'm not going to criticize a guy unless he does something just stupid, which I don't think O'Connell did. I'm not going to criticize a coach for being aggressive. And the other thing that I think is interesting is the interpretation of what the decision means. And look, the onside kick, okay, we can debate that. But we saw after the Cook fumble, we saw the Detroit Lions take that football and bang, move down the field. Now, the field goal got missed, but that doesn't mean that they didn't keep the ball and move it, right? So again, the onside kick, well, kick the ball down the field and pin them. Okay, that'd be awesome. Yeah. But are the Vikings pinning guys right now? They're not.
There was another sort of trust decision that was made that we haven't talked about because it didn't mean that much. After the Lions missed their field goal at the end of the first half, the Vikings had time to run 2 plays. They get a chunk play to Justin Jefferson into Lions territory. It's an indoor arena, right? And they could line up for, I believe it would have been a 64-yard field goal to end the half. The Vikings have had 4 60-plus yard field goals made against them this season alone.
Right. Yeah.
And they didn't even line up to attempt it because Greg Joseph has failed to make almost all of his 50-plus yard field goals this season. Instead, they try to run like a Hail Mary, or it just kind of, I think Cousins got sacked within a second and a half, and the play was over. So can you imagine not even lining the lack of trust in your kicker? Because what they're thinking is, if that's Justin Tucker or any of the top 10 kickers in the NFL, it is a no-brainer. You just go attempt a 64-yarder. And the Vikings are thinking, well, he's almost certainly not going to make it. And there's like a 15% chance it gets blocked and then maybe returned. Let's just avoid that altogether.
Correct.
So there's lack of trust in defense, lack of trust in kicker have played into some of the things you've seen recently. Dex, you got one more statement for us?
Yeah, I got one more. My last statement would be, I'll use this one here. Yeah, feed your playmakers. Just continue to feed the playmakers on your team. I love that Kirk fed Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson a healthy amount yesterday, and obviously Hawkinson making his return to Detroit. Justin Jefferson continues just to be a beast out there. He wanted revenge after a pretty quiet game against the Lions. He ends up setting the team record, obviously, for receiving yards in a game. That's what you have to do. You don't have to just, continue to check down to CJ Hams or try to throw KJ Osborne's way. You should put the ball in your 2 best receivers' hands right now, which is obviously number 1, Justin Jefferson. And TJ Hawkinson is clearly, I think, the second best weapon on this Vikings offense. And Kirk made a decent effort at getting both those guys the football a lot yesterday, 20-plus targets, and up with 17 receptions. They combined for nearly 300 yards, I think, of total offense between those 2 players. Feed those playmakers. That should be the recipe. Those 2 should be your 1 and 2 options every single time.
Yeah. Can I, since we're talking about Kirk here in part, let me just throw this one in. So Kirk has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when blitzed this season. He has the lowest yards per attempt and one of the lowest passer ratings when blitzed. But he's been great when pressured. So it's kind of a weird not all blitzes become pressure if they get picked up. And maybe there's just when some of the blitzes do get closer to home, maybe he just struggles more. But yesterday, when blitzed, and he was blitzed on 30% of his dropbacks, which is actually a little, I think that's a little, that's pretty close in line with the Lions' blitz percentage this season. He was 9 for 11 for 122 yards, 11 yards per attempt when the Lions blitzed yesterday. That's pretty damn good. I think that's his best performance, or one of his 2 or 3 best performances when blitzed on the season. Also, the Vikings ran, despite their lack of running success, they did run 8 play actions yesterday, and they were 6 for 7, 18 yards per attempt on play action. So just
good for Kirk.
The threat of running the ball, even when you can't do it, is putting them in a situation where they can cash in on play action. So that's worth noting. Maybe there is some, something to just running into the back of the line for a yard and falling down. Like,
it's got to be
opens
threat.
Up play action on the next play, I guess.
It's got to be a perceived threat, right?
Yeah.
Off your Kirk stat about being blitzed and pressure, I actually took notes on a play where Kirk Cousins did something on Sunday that we have criticized him heavily for previously, and he did it perfectly. Second quarter, 3rd and 6, midfieldish, okay? Pressure comes, and I think it was a blitz. But it was definitely pressure. Kirk looks like he's going to be sacked, and he sort of evades the guy at the last second, so the defender flies past him. He then shuffles up like 2 steps in the pocket and throws a 13-yard first down pass to Jefferson, which was a great throw. More importantly, the footwork was outstanding.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we've talked about, sensing pressure. He not only avoided the sack, but he changed the pocket a little bit to make the pass. Yesterday might be, I think, as far as I've seen Cousins come in the offense for what O'Connell wants. Now, it didn't result in points, and the Vikings lost, so it's unfortunate for them. But I think we saw Kirk Cousins do a lot of the things as seamlessly as he's ever done them that we had criticized him for being unable to do before this season.
Yeah, he looks much more comfortable moving up in the pocket, sliding around in the pocket than in previous years. And it still looks a little clunky sometimes. He's not the smoothest dude. You watch Justin Herbert last night, or Patrick Mahomes, or some of these other big athlete arms, and they look a little different moving around. Kirk still looks very like, oh my God, he's like rigid and keeps the ball in the same spot, but it's working better for him. I want to add this too. So this is part of the discussion on defense for sure in the next 48 hours. The Vikings did blitz a lot yesterday relative to previously in the season, but it didn't work very well. So the Vikings blitzed Jared Goff, according to Pro Football Focus, on 32% of dropbacks. Mm-hmm. So 32% blitz rate. On the season, the Vikings have a 16% blitz rate. The top teams in the NFL are at 35, 36, 37%. So the Vikings blitzed at a rate that was closer to the top blitzing teams in the league. But on those blitzes, Jared Goff was 10 of 13, 8 yards per attempt, which is, a touchdown, 77% completion. So he handled the blitz very well, and I don't know how many of those blitzes turned into pressures. Right. So part of this discussion is, can they continue to dial up more blitzes? But more importantly, when they dial up blitzes, how can they find ways for guys to get home? Can you dial up a blitz that opens up a one-on-one for Danielle Hunter on the other side or something, right? Like, how can you get more creative in the way that you are deploying these extra rushers?
Yes. How do you scheme your blitzes towards the strength of your best players?
Yep. So there you go. There's your statements on a Monday here on Mackie and Judd. Shout out to our friends over at Park Tavern, the official sports bar of the Sports Dad, Judd Zolgad.
Sports Dad was there on, what was it, Saturday? Friday? I stopped in too. So yes, Sports Dad has a sports
Sunday
bar.
morning, and then this morning before.
No, I wasn't there on. I wasn't there on Sunday. I wasn't there on Sunday, but
Headed
I went
there right now.
Said hi to my friends Phil and Cheryl. They're fantastic, and guess what? They want to see you there too. Park Tavern, located in St. Louis Park, Louisiana Avenue South, open 365 days a year. In fact, Phil asked me to tell you guys that, you know what? Christmas Eve, open. Christmas Day, open. New Year's Eve and Day, the same thing. So go bowling, hang out. Perhaps you're just, claustrophobic at home and you're like, I'd like to get out, but so many bars and restaurants are closed. Park Tavern is not. And if you want to bring your group there for a group event, you can do that as well. They're fantastic and it's very affordable, easy as possible. 952-929-6810, parktavern.net. Parktavern.net is waiting for you to make reservations. But again, if you just want to go bowling on Christmas Eve, Park Tavern is the place for you in St. Louis Park.
The best way you guys can help us, because I know people ask, and we thank you for this, how can we help you guys as you grow SKOR North, Purple Daily, Mackey, and Judd? Book a group event at Park Tavern and tell them that the sports dad, Judd Zolgad, sent
Tell
you
them
over
SKOR North, because they might be like, who's sports
Who's
dad?
the sports dad? Yeah.
Who's the sports dad? And why does that sound creepy? And it's not. It's not creepy at all.
No, I don't think
fun.
anyone thinks it's creepy. Have you been worried that sports dad is creepy?
Well, if you start calling places, though, and saying sports dad told me, it might sound creepy. It's not creepy when I say it, but if you're like, yeah, sports
you
dad,
just made it a little creepy now.
Sports dad sent me. It might sound a little bit weird.
Right,
That's all I'm
sports
saying.
dad.
But yes, you're right. Park Tavern.
Book a group event. Get creative with how you can book a group event, too. A shout out to our friends also at Federated for helping us grow our business the last few years. They've been helping business owners for over 100 years based in Owatonna with risk management. They're like having a great offensive line, a better offensive line than maybe you saw yesterday, helping you navigate the potentially and sometimes choppy waters of business ownership. It's also very rewarding, but having a guiding hand like Federated helps make everything a little smoother. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, we will rank NFL teams tomorrow on Purple Daily, and we have some other stuff, too. We haven't even gotten to everything, I feel like, after that game, the third loss of the season for the Vikings. If you could, please click subscribe on the SKOR North and Purple Daily YouTube channels. Help spread the word about this Minnesota sports community of fans that we are trying to build here. You guys are helping us with that. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow on Mackey and Judd.